My name is Hans-Peter Beck. This keynote presentation was first given at the 20 years anniversary of Proekspert on April the 25th, 2013 in Tallinn, Estonia. This presentation is explaining how Estonia can become the richest nation in the world. When you write a software program, does it always work the first time around? Does it always meet customer expectations or market expectations the first time around? Does it always scale well and perform unaffected by a number of users and transaction load the first time around? No, of course it does not. Software is buggy. It scales badly and it doesn't meet customer requirements the first and maybe not even the second and third time around. Actually, the troubles with software engineering made us invent agile methods, right? Waterfall approaches simply took us to too many disasters. So software engineers know better than most that bringing a successful product to a customer is an iterative process where both the engineer and the customer are intimately engaged. The DNA of modern software engineering is what holds the potential for making Estonia the richest nation in the world. My presentation today carries the title, Software is Eating the World, Opportunities and Challenges for Estonia. Eating the world, it has a somewhat negative connotation. Software-based business models certainly disrupts a lot of industries. It changes the lives of many people for good and for worse. Just like the printing press, the steam machine, and the combustion engine did before the computer, the compiler, and the internet was invented. The statement, software is eating the world, isn't mine. So who said these words? Why did he say it? Because it was a he. What are the opportunities and what are the challenges? The statement comes from Mark Andreessen. So who is he? Mark was in the development team of the first internet browser called Mosaic. Mosaic was developed at the National Center for Supercomputing Applications, NCSA, at the University of Illinois beginning late 1992. NCSA released the browser in 1993, exactly 20 years ago. What a coincidence. Proekspert was founded also 20 years ago. Mark moved on and co-founded Netscape in 1994 in Mountain View, California. By the mid-90s, Netscape had 90% of the market for internet browsers. Mark and his co-founders did a successful IPO. They introduced the company on the New York Stock Exchange. And then Netscape caught the attention of Microsoft. Microsoft acquired a license from Mosaic and released the Internet Explorer in August 1995, bundled as a free utility with Windows 95 Plus. This started the so-called browser war, and that war Netscape lost. Netscape evolved into Mozilla and was rewritten to become Firefox, and AOL later acquired the assets of Netscape for $10 billion and is today using the brand for other purposes. With an IPO behind him, Mark was financially okay and moved on and started other companies, which he later sold to EDS and HP. In 2009, he announced the foundation of Andreessen and Horowitz, a Silicon Valley venture investment firm. Why did he say that software is eating the world? Andreessen and Horowitz have investments in 125 software companies. They manage a $2.7 billion investment fund. If you have that much at stake in software, you better believe in the software industry. With the Facebook IPO underway in 2011, airing a valuation of mind-blowing $100 billion, cries of bubble started to pop up in the media. Were all these loss-making software companies a repetition of the year 2000 bubble? Andreessen and Horowitz just didn't need a bubble at that point in time when they prepared for the Facebook IPO. Andreessen and Horowitz have several investments in double-sided business models where the route to profit just hasn't been identified yet. Thus, they have a very vested interest in keeping up the hope in the market until they can file IPOs and get out. Mark also knows that even in good times, between 75 and 90% of his investments will fail. Now, with a high intrinsic failure rate and a bubble looming, Mark decided it was time for a public statement. My own theory is that we are in the middle of a dramatic and broad technological and economic shift in which software companies are poised to take over large swaths of the economy. This is a key statement from the elaborate essay in the Wall Street Journal on August 20, 2011. I think he's right. So let's take a look at what has happened in the 13 years since the first bubble in year 2000. In my humble opinion, software is eating the world on 3 levels. Level 1 is representing the increase in software and products and services we are already very familiar with. Software is not only a part of the product itself, but also an increasing part of the services surrounding the product. My new Samsung Smart TV is basically a computer with a high-definition screen allowing me to watch cable TV, access the internet watching YouTube or Netflix, or see videos stored on the hard disk in my basement, all enabled by software. The Philips Hue light source, which is sold through Apple stores, has an internet address and can be remotely controlled from my iPhone. A friend of mine in the Netherlands is currently building a business around intelligent LED lighting. He is categorizing his business as a software business. Cars are increasingly software controlled. Traffic management systems are mainly software driven. More than 50% of the cost of developing the Joint Strike Fighter, which is $1 trillion project, is related to software systems. Level 1 represents established industries that are operating in typically red ocean type markets and use software to improve product value and reduce capital as well as operational expenses. The demand for software engineering services will continue to increase from Layer 1 enterprises. These are the current customers of Proekspert and most other software engineering companies. Layer 2 represents entire industries that have been disrupted by software. This disruption is very bloody. Customers enjoy dramatically improved value at considerably lower prices. The companies disrupted are crippled and many cease to exist. The disruptors are almost always outsiders. Let's take a look at the music industry. The music industry was disrupted by the MP3 file format. Later on, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, and other digital music distribution and service platforms picked up the industry. But the transition was a big mess and it is not over yet. So who were the main losers? The record labels and the equipment manufacturers were the big losers. Who wanted bulky equipment when you can actually have all your music in your pocket? But don't think it's easy to be a performing artist either. Out of curiosity, I did a little research into the business of Oppa Gangnam Style by the Korean artist Psy. Psy made $870,000 on YouTube ad sharing revenue when the number of views were around 1 billion. He made $2.4 million on downloads through iTunes. He made $4.6 million on endorsements, primarily with Samsung. And he made $80,000 on streaming the song through internet radio. A total of $8 million. Now, had Psy made such a popular song just 15 years ago, he wouldn't have made 8 million, but rather $8 billion. So the music industry has certainly also changed for the performing artists. Who disrupted the still picture and homemade video industry? The JPEG and MPEG file format did. Viewing pictures and homemade videos have been spread over a lot of software platforms. Who is disrupting the telcos? Well, they are primarily killing each other in a red ocean type market while Skype is eating their lunch from a blue ocean position. Let's spend a few minutes on Skype, which is close to the Estonian hearts, I assume. Skype was founded in 2003 by Janus Friis from Denmark and Niklas Sennström from Sweden. The software was developed in Estonia by Ati Heinla, Priit Kasesalu, and Jan Tallinn. These guys already knew each other from the Kazaa project. In 2005, Skype, then incorporated in Luxembourg, was acquired by eBay for $2.5 billion US. In 2009, that's 4 years later, eBay sold 65% of Skype to a group of investors, including Andreessen and Horowitz, at a $2.75 billion valuation. So eBay apparently was not a good home for Skype. In May 2011, Microsoft acquired Skype for a whopping $8.5 billion. It seems that Andreessen, Horowitz and company did a much better job than eBay. By the end of 2012, Skype's share of the international call market was, are you ready? 34%. Skype is by far the largest international call carrier in the world, and they are not a telco. Skype is a software company. Layer 3, here the fun really starts. These are all businesses providing a service we didn't know of 10 to 15 years ago. I won't go through them all. You are familiar with the brands on the left. They are generic consumer brands based on double-sided business models. Double-sided business models are mainly getting revenue from advertisement. They sell us, the users, to the advertisers. As we move to the right, the brands become less known and represent niche solution in freemium or paid-for formats. Some of them are B2C, some of them are B2B. While the brands on the left all originate in the US, the brands on the right comes from all over the world. Angry Birds are from Finland. Wordview comes from Norway. Secunia is Danish. Xero is from New Zealand. 37 Signals is from Chicago. Flight Radar is from Sweden, and OnSong is from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. This brings me to the opportunities offered by software-based business models today. I have divided these opportunities into 4 areas. Cost of entry is low and keeps falling. Starting a software-based business requires very little cash. Most software-based businesses can be started without external funding. I'm not claiming that they can scale fast without funding, but proof of concept requires only little cash. If you don't plan on beating Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, and their likes, you can get something off the ground fast and with very little money. You can even use the channels provided by the app stores to get the product to the market, if your product fits this format. I'm not claiming that starting a new software-based business is easy. I'm only saying that it doesn't necessarily require a lot of time and cash. Starting a software-based business in Estonia is probably even less expensive than starting it in the US, UK, France, or Scandinavia. Market reach. There are currently 1 billion broadband subscribers worldwide. 300 million are fixed line based and 700 million mobile based. The access to the 1 billion subscribers is equal for anyone, anywhere in the network. There are no major advantage of being in a certain location when it comes to market reach through the internet. If you need a big market with a single language, 1.5 billion people are prepared to consume and do business with you in English. That should be enough to get anybody started. Location. Does it matter anymore? Not as much as it used to, and the location for software-driven business opportunities keep losing its relevance. There are still some ecosystem issues that I'll get back to at the end of my presentation, but locations become increasingly irrelevant. Innovation concepts. This is probably the most important development we have seen since the birth of the computer, the compiler, and the internet. The most profound and not fully exploited sources for making a software-based business successful are the new innovation concepts developed over the last 5 years. These concepts are not reserved exclusively for software-driven businesses, but due to the nature of software, with no manufacturing, no materials, no logistics, we can take full advantage of these methods. Especially the work done by Eric Ries in his Lean Startup book, Steve Blank in his recent The Startup Owner's Manual, and Alexander Osterwalder's Business Model Generation book holds tremendous potential for software-based innovation. The time doesn't allow me to go into details, but these approaches have 3 major attributes. 1, they're all very well documented and can be freely used. The authors claim no royalty for using the methods, and that's great news for innovation on a tight budget. 2, they're all based on getting to customers fast, less ivory tower thinking and more doing. 3, they're all designed to make business initiative fail fast. Failing fast is probably the most important feature of the new innovation approaches. Recognizing a failure fast allows you to pivot and try several alternative routes before you run out of cash and have to take a job, at least for a while. These innovation concepts are not bound by location and can be used all over the globe. Actually, Steve Blank was in China just recently teaching Chinese entrepreneurs how to apply these approaches. Do you see similarity between these principles and agile software engineering? Well, I do. And now we are back to my questions at the beginning of my presentation. The agile methods we have applied in software engineering for years are finally making their way into business development. Gone are the waterfall approaches with 120-page business plans. Business model innovation is to business development what agile engineering was to software development. I will claim that software engineers are better positioned to embrace the new business innovation approaches than most MBAs on this globe. Now, let's wrap up before I reach the final stretch of my presentation. I have concluded or substantiated that there is a growing market for software in all industries. I have concluded that there are tons of opportunities in building software-based business models, and that these business models can be initiated all over the world at very little cost. When it comes to software-based business models delivered over the internet, big countries enjoy no comparative advantage over small countries such as Estonia. I have concluded that Estonia, with its agile software engineering tradition, holds potential for moving into agile business development in a big way. What nations need. When we talk about opportunities for nations like Estonia, we have to take a different perspective. Nations, typically represented by their governments, are driven by other incentives than businesses. All nations want 3 things. They want full employment for their people. They want a positive balance on the trade with the rest of the world, with the US as the only exception. And they want a solid and growing tax base. All good things a nation can provide its citizens are based on these 3 elements. A healthy business environment provides the foundation for these 3 elements. What nations need to keep improving the wealth and welfare of their population and grow to the top of the global value chain are the following 3 things. A well-paid population, especially a rich middle class. No nation can make it to the top of the global value chain by being a low-salary country. 2, they need an innovative environment. They need to continuously drive productivity, growth, and global competitiveness. And they need a lean government to provide services in a transparent format. All these factors reinforce each other. They provide the community ecosystem. The Estonian situation. So where do we have Estonia today? I have listed a number of so-called key performance indicators. On area, Estonia is number 133 out of 252 nations on the globe. We do not improve our position in the global value chain by taking other people's territory. Well, at least not anymore. So that's probably a position that you are not going to change. Your labor force is number 153 out of 232 nations. As you do not have an expansive policy on this key performance indicator, I assume that you're going to hold this position. On GDP, you're number 113 out of 229 in the world. On investments, you're number 58 out of 152, and that's pretty good. On GDP growth, you're number 135 out of 217, which is not so good. On GDP per capita, you're number 60 out of 228, which is good. On unemployment, you're number 125 out of 201, which is not very good. On equality, you're number 108 out of 136. That is good, because the higher the number, the more equal is your community. And the two last key performance indicators is on government budgets and your budget surplus in relation to GDP, you're number 82, which is okay. And public debt in relation to GDP, you're number 143 out of 152, and the higher the number, the better. So you got your fiscal budgets under control. The Estonian ambition must be to be number one on unemployment in the world, to be number one on GDP per capita, and to be probably among the top 10 on equality. To get there, more investments are required. The level of investments in Estonia are already fairly high, but even more must be done. However, I don't think that it is money which is needed. The challenge facing Estonia. To increase the growth and the value created in Estonia, Estonians must move up in the innovation value chain. Instead of being a key partner in other countries' business models, Estonians must move to innovate their own business models. They must increase the level of ambitions, leadership, and entrepreneurship. They must use their agile software engineering DNA to master the new innovation approaches and become black belts in demand generation. Especially, they must become better salespeople and marketers. Owned by Estonians. Estonia is a small nation. In my opinion, the country must therefore operate a very open innovation ecosystem. Attracting ambition, talent, service providers, and funding from the rest of the world will help stimulate growth in Estonia and take advantage of the excellent engineering skills in the country, as well as stimulate the current ecosystem. The best way to stimulate this is providing excellent framework conditions for business in general. Continue to make it easy to start and stop businesses. Maintain a flexible labor market, making stock options for co-founders and staff uncomplicated. Continue improving the educational system with focus on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, combined with business fundamentals and agile business innovation principles in all areas of the educational system. The government must resist the temptation to subsidize individual businesses, whether with their own funds or with funds provided by the EU. This temptation is very difficult to resist, but it will pay off in the long run. Governments cannot predict the future, nor can they pick the winners. Leave the business to business and don't mess with the market. Any tax finance support for businesses should be allocated to improve framework conditions for all businesses, including improvement of the infrastructure and the educational system. Government can stimulate the ecosystem by providing platforms for having ecosystem players get together locally and/or with players from ecosystems from other parts of the world. And if you need inspiration, you can invite Brett Feld from Boulder, Colorado, US, who is specialized in building entrepreneurial ecosystem and recently wrote a book about it. Encourage young Estonians to go abroad, learn languages, and build personal international networks. Give them all good reasons for coming back again, starting their own business or becoming key staff members in Estonian companies. What I'm telling you today is not specific to Estonia. I would say that to any small nation in the world. But I believe you're better positioned than most. Your solid economy, your democratic foundation, the low power distance, and your tradition for agile software engineering are huge assets. Let me wrap up and conclude. As individuals, we want to climb as high as we can on the value chain to better provide for our families and ourselves. As businesses, we will protect and expand our positions in fair competition on the markets. We want to grow to provide better opportunities for our employees, our shareholders, our communities, and ourselves. As nations, we also want to climb the global value chain. We want to get to the top, providing for ourselves, for our fellow citizens, and for the rest of the world. These ambitions, the innovation it fosters, combined with high ethical standards and a democratic mindset, makes the world our playground, where we can grow as individuals and as communities. I'm convinced that our efforts will make the world a better place for everyone. And by the end of the day, that may be what this is all about. Thank you for listening and have a great day.